Today on Alabama Unfiltered, we are joined by CJ Pearson. And if you don't know who he is, you will soon. We talked about identity politics, college campuses, and really what's going on across the country. If you stay tuned and join our Unleashed segment by becoming a paid subscriber, we talk to CJ about the Republican race for president and then log cabin Republicans. You don't want to miss any of it. So join us on Alabama Unfiltered.
We're literally debating that it's bad that people get to say what they think.
Can you imagine? I'm reading Psalm 144 and it says, "He trains my hands for war."
We are on the brink of total destruction of America as we know it.
Let your rebel flag fly. Welcome into this edition of Alabama Unfiltered. It's actually kind of a little bit of a mashup because we have Brian Dawson with us today, but Allison Sinclair, how are you?
Hi.
Are you good?
Welcome to the captain's chair.
I feel
How's
happy
it
in the
feel?
It feels great.
Empowering.
You know? It feels empowering.
Did you wear a pantsuit?
You got on the...
I should have,
Yeah.
but I wore jeans so everyone knows.
No serious pants.
No serious pants for me
Okay.
today. I only
No.
wore my fun jeans, and it's going to be a fun show because we're joined by the one and only CJ Pearson. How are you, sir?
Doing well. It's so good to be with y'all. And I got to say, it's great to hear a Southern accent. I don't get to hear that too often down here in LA these days. So
You want me to do my Scott Beeson impression so I can really bring him home?
do that.
Now it's like I'll do it when it fits in naturally.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
So
Yeah,
you hear the
usually there's
banjos
a roll
playing.
tide.
Well, we should get the roll tides out of the way.
Yes,
Okay.
we did. Roll Tide.
Roll tide, everybody. Okay.
hey, I'm wearing it. Shout out to Christopher Mobley. Roll Tide.
I see it. Like, this is not crimson, but I'm doing my best. Okay. We're doing our best right here. We're sorry, Allison. More Eagle
No, she's a Tennessee fan
Vols.
this year.
and Gold
Come
Vols.
on, Allison.
I know.
I know.
It's just strange, but I'm surrounded, so whatever. Roll Tide.
There you go.
Blah.
Okay. So CJ,
You're outnumbered.
she is outnumbered, but we love you. I'd
Thank
wear
you.
orange for you.
I wouldn't.
Don't do
Kinda
it. It's
like
a
in The
bad
Blind
color on
Side.
everybody.
I'd wear
Don't
it
do
for
it.
you.
Don't
I
do
only
it.
wear orange when I go hunting. Actually, I'm a Broncos fan, but I haven't been since Peyton Manning left because anyway, on to the show.
Yes.
On to the show. All right. So CJ, people may know you by one singular, well, they know you for a lot of reasons, but I am fascinated as the mother of 4 kids. Nobody's the age you were when this happened, but I want to know as we dive in today, what motivated you were you 8 or 9 when you did that video?
Yeah, so in that video, I was actually around 11 or 12
11
years
or 12,
old.
okay.
So I was in the 7th grade, going into 7th grade, actually, I believe. And what's interesting about that is that I was just a kid who wanted to be heard. And looking at that situation for some context there, what had happened and what was kind of the catalyst for that video was that Rudy Giuliani in a fundraiser had said something about Obama and how he didn't love America. Because if he really did love America, that he would just simply have been a better president. He would have, led America from a position of strength, not a position of weakness. He criticized his fiscal policy, all of these things. And I remember seeing all across Facebook and Twitter, social media, people calling Rudy Giuliani a racist for doing it. And I was like, I don't think it's racist to simply criticize someone's political beliefs just because they're and just because they happen to be black. And so, funny enough, I had just gotten a camcorder for Christmas and I hadn't used it yet. And so I decided to turn on the camcorder, film that video and uploaded it. Had no idea it was going to go viral or get as many views as it did, but ultimately it did. And there's a funny story about that as well. So I think we've talked about this, Allison. So my household does not share my same political beliefs. We have very different ideas when it comes to that kind of thing. And they had no idea about that video until Sean Hannity was talking about the video. And sometimes my daddy loves to watch Fox News just in the background and whatnot. And so he hears, Sean Hannity, cueing the video and talking about this young 12-year-old kid who just made this video going into Obama. He looks at the TV screen. It's me. And I tell you, he screamed from upstairs. It's CJ, get up here. And he's like, what is this video? How can you talk about the first black president like this? He's like, you need to go delete this. And I was like, no, like I said what I said. And it was an entire ordeal. But, at the end of the day, I always joke around with him. I'm like, you guys made me this way. You made me. You always told me to stand up for what I believe in. You always told me to be vocal. But also, too, my parents, while they are card carrying Democrats, they're pretty conservative folks. I grew up going to church every single Sunday, going to Bible study on Wednesdays. I grew up, learning the value of a dollar, the importance of work ethic. And my grandfather served 20 years in the military. So conservative values weren't a stretch for me. It wasn't a big jump. And so it was the start of a journey that has continued to last. And now I'm 20 years old and still giving the left a hard time. It's been a fun ride.
But that's awesome. Just like, it's so funny because I went back and watched it, and I think I had watched it once before because my son Connor actually is the first one that really told me about you. And I'm pretty sure he sent you an email at some point. This is maybe 2.5 years ago. Basically just saying, hey, can I come work for you? You're like a freshman at the University of Alabama, but Connor just wanted to be like your coffee go-getter or something. But and I remember watching it, and it's so raw. You need to go look it up. I guess type in CJ Pearson, Obama.
It'll pop right up.
It'll pop up.
Yeah.
But
a few things should come up.
It's so cute. You're like, you're so raw and real, and there's like a puppy poster in the background, and he's got his little trophies beside him. And it's funny because you kind of got interested in politics from what I was reading, maybe in your first grade or second grade class with a mock election. And
it was the second grade.
Yeah, you had to do some research on the candidates, and that's when you're like, wait a second, maybe I'm not a Democrat. Maybe.
Yeah, I know exactly that. It was second grade. My second grade teacher, Miss Sharon Best, who I remember and give her great credit to where I am today. We had a mock election. And of course, we had to do what every good citizen at the time was doing themselves. We had to research the candidates, watch the debates, read the newspaper, and then ultimately we were going to figure out who we wanted to vote for at the end of the week. And I remember watching a debate between then Senator Obama and Senator McCain, sitting on the floor of our living room and looking at that TV and just thinking, obviously I'm a 7-year-old kid. I had no idea where Iran was, what healthcare reform meant. But I knew that what they were talking about was important, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to also be a part of something important. But following that debate, I also realized that I wanted to figure out where I sit on the issues. Like, I wanted to figure out if I were a Democrat or Republican, if I were conservative or liberal or whatever else. And ultimately, in that election, I ended up voting for John McCain. Now, I don't know if I would make that same decision today, but then I did. And what was interesting about that is that for me, it was about his military service. As I said, my grandfather, he served 20 years in the military. I grew up surrounded by plenty of American flags, seeing all of my grandfather's military honors on the walls and all of those things. So it was something I had a deep and profound respect for. And so I cast my vote for him. And then after that, it was just about a self-discovery for me. I wanted to figure out truly where did I stand on these issues. And like I said, I had a pretty conservative upbringing growing up in Georgia, going to church, hearing about the importance of faith and family and all of those things. But my parents were Democrats, and they have always voted that way. And so I knew where they stood, but I wanted to figure out where I stood. And so when I tell you I watched everything I could get my hands on, I was watching old CPAC speeches on YouTube. I was watching MSNBC. I was watching Fox News, CNN, just trying to figure out where, again, I stood. But then ultimately, I realized that I stood on the right side of the aisle. And the reason being, again, it goes back to my upbringing. I've always been told that just because you have the money doesn't mean you should spend the money. I've always been told that, in times of turmoil and conflict, that we should look to God for guidance as a country and as a nation. And so embracing conservative values was something that was just second nature to me. And while it was definitely the centerpiece of some interesting dinner time conversation for many years to come at that point, it was great because at the end of the day, and I really do place a lot of credit to this part of my upbringing, is that having parents who had different political beliefs, it actually made me very, very aware of what the other side believes. So much so that I was intimately aware that they were very, very wrong about the direction that our country should be heading. But also, too, it makes you a better advocate for your beliefs. I always say that as conservatives, we can't just, rest on our laurels and just preach to the choir. We've got to grow the congregation. And that means talking to people where they are, where they're at, and bringing them to our side. We got to be an evangelist of our ideology, of our philosophies of hope and opportunity, and also of just good old fashioned American values. And so that's always been the approach that I've taken. And I don't know if I would have, taken that approach necessarily if I hadn't grown up the way that I had. So it's been a great road and journey.
One of the things I think is worth talking about, and do you know K. Carl Smith by any chance?
I don't think so.
Okay. So he's a big Frederick Douglass guy. He writes for us, has been on the podcast. He's a big Trump guy. Anyway, He has a very similar story to you, though he's, probably 50 or 60 now, so he's a little bit older, but same type of thing. And one thing from meeting with him, talking with him, and just watching the Alabama political landscape, specifically in Alabama, it's not nationwide, the Democrats in Alabama, which is made up mostly of black people, right? And so, but they're more conservative than most of the Republicans in the state. And it's exactly what you said. They're God-fearing, hardworking people who love their families and want more of their money that they've earned to go in their pocket, not into taxes. The value system is there, but there's like this blind allegiance to a party, and it's just identity politics. You were able to break free from it. What do you think it is? Because to me, that's the future of the political thing. You saw Trump, what he was able to do, and what Ron DeSantis has been able to do in Florida by getting people who identity politics wise should have been with Democrats, but they really realized, like, wait a second, I'm actually over here. How do you think we open the eyes of people like your family members and get, make some hay in that area?
Yeah, I think you have to, number one, you have to ask people, do you think that you've been getting what you deserve from voting 90% of the time for a political party that only seems to care about you during an election year? If you look at the state of Chicago, look at the state of Detroit, look at the state of every single progressive ran city in America, what do you see? You see poverty, you see destitution, you see violent crime, running rampant. I think black people deserve better. I think Latino voters deserve better than that. And I think that we've gotten to a point in which we're seeing actually is that people are opening their eyes and saying, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And unfortunately, it has to get to that point for some people before they actually just start changing the way in which they've always voted, because it really is a social conditioning thing, right? So it's like, I was young. I was so young that I hadn't been corrupted by this pervasive view that the color of my skin should dictate my politics. I was just simply a kid who wanted to know if I was a Republican or Democrat, and I let my values be my North Star. Amen. But unfortunately, if you look at older generations of African Americans, older generations of Latinos and other communities, is that it's a social conditioning thing. They've been told since almost they were born that they are supposed to vote one way or the other because of the color of their skin, because of their ethnicity. And it's absolutely wrong. Because if you look at the actual accomplishments that we've seen from conservatives in this country, look at President Trump, for example. We had the lowest black unemployment rate in our nation's history. We had criminal justice reform for the first time, done by a conservative Republican. The Democrats did it. Donald Trump did it. And so to that point, I've got to say, you've got to ask, what have the Democrats done for people of color in this country other than use us and abuse us and only speak to us when they need our votes? And I think that's what you have to remind black voters of, because it's a very, very real thing. And unfortunately, I think that, or should I say, fortunately, actually, I think the chains that have long been around just the minds of so many people of color in this country are finally starting to break free. Look at what happened in Georgia recently. Stacey Abrams was 1.8% away from being the governor of Georgia in 2018. She lost by 10 plus points this past cycle because black voters were like, Stacey, you're not with us. Why should we be with you?
I want to come back and kind of talk about like what your plan is for kind of your generation. How do we capture? I want to talk about, are they really as liberal as we all think they are? But it's funny you say, and you bring up Donald Trump, because this hasn't been like a linear progression for you. You went through a Bernie Sanders phase, and you weren't a Trump fan at first. And I think there's a lot of
a whole bunch of us weren't
grace for that, because we're all on this path, and you're young and you're discovering. But it almost like reconfirms you left conservatism, I guess, in 2015 is kind of how they pitch it in all the articles. You were Bernie Sanders and very anti-Trump, but how did you make it back? Because it must have just been this, you've got to go through those, I think, to really test your beliefs. And now I put you as a Trump supporter and very much conservative like him. So what was that transition like?
Yeah. I think like any young person, you go through your growing pains. And for me, I was a kid, when I decided to support, Senator Sanders. And for me, there was a lot, going on at that time. I think for me, largely, though, it was the fact that I did grow up in a household where I was surrounded by progressivism. And even at a young age, when you're bold and independent and have such a big voice of your own, you do want to have the validation of your parents. You want them to be proud of you. And there was a certain point where I was like, maybe if I shared their politics, they would be prouder. But then as I went down that path and I was saying things like, there should be free healthcare, or that Bernie Sanders is the solution to all of our problems, I realized that I didn't believe any of that. And I realized that the values that I had, the conservative values that I had, the upbringing that I had, were diametrically opposed to everything that he was talking about. But I also remembered how actually my parents had raised me. They had raised me to be a fighter for the things in which I believe in, that I truly believe in, not to bend my politics to make them happy or anyone happy, but to be an advocate for truth, not just my truth, because everyone loves to have versions of their truth these days, but the truth, objective truth. The fact that America is indeed the greatest nation in the world, a pinnacle of freedom and liberty, a shining city on a hill. Those were the things in which I truly believed. And I didn't care if the internet had, things to say about me that were negative, or if they had death threats to send my way or whatever else. I was going to speak the truth that I believed in. And so I came back to conservatism. And when it came, to President Trump, I think it was a thing that a lot of us were kind of at in the conservative movement for a time. We didn't know the guy. And so, I remember, listening to him talk at a certain point, and it was like, I don't really know if this is the direction our party should be going in. Because unfortunately, I drank some of the Kool-Aid that the media was trying to pour down our throats. That he was this, he was that, he was everything else. And I realized, no, he is just scaring the hell out of these people. And we need more politicians like that, who are not afraid to call balls and strikes, who are not afraid to speak truth to power, and who are not afraid to challenge the establishment. And that is exactly why I supported him. And I've been such a huge supporter of him today. And I think is why you see the people who have emerged as the biggest supporters were once Trump critics themselves. You see folks like Candace Owens, you see Kellyanne Conway, who was a big Cruz supporter. And it's so funny when I get to talk to them about it. It's like, everything that he's done has, I think, given a roadmap of what the conservative movement should continue to be and continue to fight for. We need America first. And I think that what's interesting about this entire thing that's unfortunate about, of course, the past election is that I think it's kind of bittersweet for a moment. Obviously, I would have preferred for President Trump to be reelected. And I think that there are some significant issues with the election and whatnot. But I think that Americans needed a wake-up call, because I think a lot of people thought that America was just on cruise control during the Trump presidency, that everything was just good because it's always good and it's always going to be good. But I think if you look at the state of America today, you look at record high inflation, you look at empty grocery stores, you see gas prices higher than they've been in many, many years. People are like, I deserve more than this. I want better than this. And maybe Donald Trump wasn't that bad of a guy. I may not have liked his tweets or whatever else. I may not like the way that he said things, but I'd rather have $2 gas than whatever else, right? So it's like the media can attack him, they can slander him, they can defame him, and they can attack people like us, the so-called deplorables. But at the end of the day, I've got to say, a lot of people are wishing it was 4 years ago than the state that we're in right now.
So true. And it's fun because your journey with Trump is not like, I don't think any of us voted for him in the primary.
I've got a whole story there. I didn't know I was allowed to vote until after the primary. So the first vote I've ever cast in my entire life was for Donald Trump in the general election.
Brian spent a few years in prison. You need to.
His story is incredible.
Like,
it's literally incredible.
Because he's like, just not. I see him as a teddy bear, not a prisoner. But anyway, he was all that. But and then Donald Trump kind of started to prove himself, and we're like, what in the world? So I think that's a normal trajectory. Yeah.
I mean, let just objectively look at it. He was a New York Democrat that donated to Planned Parenthood that was saying a lot of really good things about the border. And we'd been lied to by every other Republican, John McCain, what's the other guy? Mitt Romney.
Oh, yeah.
It's Bob McRomney Dole. It's the same person. It's just this big. Anyway, so I'm just thinking like, well, here's another person who's lying to us, but I really like this rhetoric. I was a Ted Cruz guy. That's who I wanted to win.
I was a Ted Cruz guy.
And then boom, here comes Trump. And then, right away just starts doing things he said he was going to do, which is, that's really all it takes.
How novel is that, Brian?
Yeah.
You actually have a politician
it assured his certain doom.
What they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
It really did.
It was,
So, okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to jump into the college campuses before we finish up with you today. DEI, all that garbage that's going on. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
What's up, guys? Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News here. I want to take a minute to tell you about my good friends over at Centurion Labs. Cold weather is here, and you know what that means. Colds, the flu, and coronaviruses are running rampant. Your immune system needs protection, and that's why I love what my friends over at Centurion Labs are doing. They're always looking for safe, effective, affordable ways to keep you healthy and at your best. Got a cough, sore throat, or a runny nose? You need to check out their Ninja Cough product. You heard me, Ninja Cough. It contains the strongest non-narcotic cough suppressant on the market with no sugar, alcohol, or dyes. So it's safe for everyone, even your kids. Looking to strengthen your immune health, prevent sickness, or fight off the flu, and of course, coronaviruses? Defender Immunity Boost is for you. It is an all-in-one immunity booster that combines vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, copper, and quercetin in just one pill to save you money and help defend your health. Having trouble sleeping? Defender PM is a nighttime immunity booster that will help you get rest and boost your immune health. Now is the time to defend your health, save money, and support a company that shares your Christian values and loves this country. Centurion has dedicated the last 15 years to research and develop safe, effective, and affordable products made in the USA that you can trust. For a limited time, listeners of this podcast can get 20% off their first bottle order when you visit centurionlabs.com/1819news and use the promo code 1819. That's centurionlabs.com/1819news with the promo code 1819. Check them out, guys.
Welcome back, everybody. Allison, do we love our products from Centurion Labs?
We do. Actually, I need to order more. I'm almost out of my Just Energy.
I was just selling somebody on it last week. I was like, you need to go order it now, especially the evening supplement.
There's a part of me out of morbid curiosity that wants to get some Ninja Cough just to have it.
Oh, you need to have Ninja Cough.
Ninja Cough, okay. I am a believer in the Defender because I took Defender the first time I had COVID and believed it helped me tremendously. It's got all your vitamin C, D3, zinc, quercetin, and other those things that you need. And he was way ahead of the curve on that stuff. That's like, those were the things that were going to help. Anyway, so really, really good stuff.
We need to send some to CJ Pearson, who's here with us today.
Yes.
And welcome back. Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
But yeah, he's out in LA with all those
Special
people and
with all of those. You're right. That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah, when it's okay to say those people, right? We're allowed to say those people.
You actually got that part right.
Yes. I was actually going to say germs and pollution and lots of people, but we'll send you some Defender. You can try it out. But I know we don't have much time with you left, but I want to ask you. So you left. You are now living in Los Angeles. You were enrolled in the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. And you left college to go out and you're working for PragerU. You're starting your own show. I want to talk about that a little bit, but I want to go back to what in the world is happening on our college campuses. I would love your take on that as well. So tell us what you're doing in LA and then go back to Bama.
Yeah, exactly. So I moved here to Los Angeles, I think 3 or so months ago now, which is a journey that I never thought I would make. I've grown up in the South, grew up in Georgia, went to school at Alabama for 3 years. And then when the opportunity came to join PragerU and to be a part of the incredible work they're doing across the country, really, to do what we kind of talked about before the break, to grow the congregation and not just preach to the choir, was an opportunity I just really couldn't pass up on. I think that, one of the biggest goals that PragerU is very intentional about is teaching what is not being taught. And that's exactly, I think, how we save America. And it relates kind of directly to what we're seeing on our college campuses, which have become far more about indoctrination than it is about education. And so I've launched a new show here called The Wrap Up, where we break down the biggest stories of the week, from politics to culture to everything else that the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear about. And, your listeners can check that out every single Friday. And that's available on all platforms, YouTube, PragerU.com, the whole 9 yards. And so that's been super exciting. But, the second part of your question, you talked about the state of college campuses across America. And it is truly unfortunate because it's not just happening in, deep blue states like California or, New York City or wherever else, but it's happening in red states too. I was just talking to Senator Tom Whatley over the weekend, who sent me this article about how Auburn University is bringing on, Allison, this is your neck of the woods, by the way. Auburn University is bringing on a DEI director for their agricultural college, I guess to make farming more diverse and equitable.
We need gay corn.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's going to make you a better livestock
cows.
farmer or a dairy farmer.
Because
And
that matters.
it's just, yeah, it's a race to the bottom. And it's a shame because I think here's the deal. You know, college education is about diversity of viewpoint. I am totally okay with the idea that college students should be hearing viewpoints from every side of the aisle, whether it's left, right, middle, or center, whatever. But I think that there's a difference about what is actually happening in practice in our campuses today. We're seeing leftism being presented to students as if it's the only ideology that they can believe in, as if it's the only way in which they can examine the issues. And that is a shame. That's not education. That's indoctrination. I'm old enough to remember when education was about teaching students how to think and not what to think. And unfortunately, we've seen a departure from that. And the DEI thing is something that is very pervasive because it sounds like something that, why would you object to it? Diversity? We're not against that in theory or in practice, right? Equity, well, when you actually think about what equity means, where it's not about actually equality of opportunity, it's about equality of outcome. That sounds not too ideal, but whatever. Equity doesn't sound nefarious at face value. And then, of course, inclusion. Who wants to be excluded, right? But when you actually look down deeper into what DEI is, it is the same doctrine that underpins CRT. This idea of anti-white sentiment, of Black victimhood, which I talked about in a recent show that I did with Vice News, that this is actually not conducive to actually creating Black success or Black scholars. How are you going to allow for Black people, for Black students, for Black kids to see themselves as scholars, as leaders, as future governors and business leaders if they are perpetually being told that they are a victim, who are having to fight against the so-called white man to achieve just a fraction of what their white peers are able to? I think that's the exact opposite of what we should be teaching young kids in any classroom, whether it's in high school, middle school, elementary school, or even college. And so I think it's the most important fight that's happening in America right now, in large part because of the fact that this is directly impacting the next generation of leaders in America. And conservatives have an obligation to fight this fight because if we don't, we will lose an entire generation to the left, and our country can't afford that. And so it's why I'm so excited to be a part of PragerU. It's why I'm excited to take this message across the country and do all that we can to wrestle our college campuses back from the radical left.
So what are your, yeah, exactly. What are your final thoughts for our viewers in Alabama? What would you encourage them to do right now? They're watching this, they're motivated, you're young, you have so many good ideas, you're out there doing the work of helping to save America. What would you say to them?
I would say don't rest on your laurels. I love Alabama, and I know that our paths will cross again one day. I look forward to being back every time that I am, and I was actually just there a week ago in Tuscaloosa visiting some friends, and it is a beautiful state. And we have some incredible leaders of the state, but do not rest on your laurels. I grew up in Georgia, born and raised there, and if you would have told me that Georgia would ever be a blue state, ever would be a purple state, I would have told you that you were a liar. I could have never believed that would ever be a reality that we find ourselves in, but it is. And so I think that it is important for us in red states like Alabama to be aggressive about protecting about what makes Alabama, Alabama. An appreciation and love for freedom, liberty, about real conservative solutions that maybe are not easy, but are necessary to protect our children and to protect the future of the state. There is no reason in red states like Alabama that we should be allowing biological men to be competing against women in sports. There is no reason that children should have access to life-altering medications that will allow them to change their gender and mutilate their genitals. It's wrong and it's unconscionable. And there is no reason in a red state like Alabama that we should be having taxpayer-funded racism like DEI initiatives or anything like that happening in our state. And at the end of the day, here's the deal. I've always said this about conservatives and I always said this about Republicans. We get power, but we oftentimes don't know how to use it. Which is why I feel like people are so excited about Governor DeSantis, because it's like for the first time you see a politician in power and he actually is using the power and weight of his office to actually make conservative things happen. If you look at what he's done with the child drag shows, this was something that was super innovative and kind of wild to see, is that when there was a child drag show at a bar, he took away their liquor license. That's crazy, right? Like, why are we not doing that in every single red state in the country? When you look at the new College of Florida, when he saw administration was quelching free speech on campus and not allowing diversity of viewpoint, he appointed conservatives to the board of trustees for that university. Why isn't that not happening at Auburn? Why is that not happening at the University of Alabama system? I know a lot of those people are conservative, but we've got to make sure that we are, are being aggressive about ensuring that, again, Alabama remains Alabama. Because at the end of the day, the left is fighting tirelessly every single day. They're targeting our children. They're targeting every person of every age and of every color, and they're seeking to target the fundamental values that make America America. And if you think that they're trying to change the direction of this country, imagine what they would like to do in Alabama. Imagine if folks like our good friend Tabitha over at the Democratic Party of Alabama was able to get her way, what Alabama would look like. And I think that we've got to fight harder, we've got to fight back, and we've got to be aggressive. And at the end of the day, we are in a time of choosing. Reagan once said, right, where we have to decide what type of nation we wish to be. Will we be a nation of opportunity, of freedom, of liberty, or will we be a nation of lawlessness and just downright a progressive race to the bottom? And I believe fundamentally that America is the greatest nation in the world, but it didn't get there by patriots sitting on the sidelines. It got there by patriots being on the front lines. And I'm committed to that fight. I know that you guys are. And thank you so much again for having me. It's been so great.
That I'm like
CJ for president.
That's what I. CJ, gosh, that was great. Thank you so much. I know your schedule is busy. If you don't follow CJ on Instagram, and well, we won't talk about. I don't even know if you're on that other one that the Chinese have, but anyway,
TikTok. I'm trying to get rid of my TikTok addiction. It's hard. Maybe once they ban it, I'll be able to get over. I was talking to a friend earlier about Kylan Darnell and Ken Urich, who go to Alabama. We have a huge Instagram TikTok thing going on there.
Well,
I don't know what's going on.
I could like for Jennings, my daughter, I have her TikTok password. She can't get in unless I type it in. I could do that for you. Because she's like, I gotta get off. Yeah,
I need you to do that. I need you to set some parental controls.
We can help
everyone's mom.
I can be your mom too.
You can do it. You can do it.
Allison really is everyone's mom. Yes. Let's talk about that. I love getting a text from Allison because I'm just like, what did I do or what did I need to do? It's just always one of the two. It's one of the two always.
Oh, CJ and I have a long history. It's funny because he's really just my son's age, and that's how I know him through his fraternity brother, Davis Perry, who went to school. And so like when I see CJ doing like really official things, I try and think of Connor doing those things. And I'm like, this would be a disaster. So it's so impressive what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're ever back in Alabama, we'd love to have you in the studio or on.
Would love to.
But what I was going to say is go follow him on his social media. He has some of the funniest, I think my favorite little video of yours is the M&M ones where you're like, I mean, why can't I just eat an M&M? Do I have to think about, am I eating a lesbian M&M?
Why are we making candy trans? Yeah. What's going on?
So I told you, Auburn's going to have tranny corn and gay cows. There's no stopping this.
Gay cows.
Listen, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And to our subscribers, we would like to tell you, if you'd like more awesome content like that, if you want sweet merch, which Brian, I don't know if you picked it out, but it is sweet.
Pretty good.
Join the fight. We have an Unleashed segment for subscribers only, but this content and more will be available. But it's kind of like some of my favorite podcasters say, support what you love or it will go away. So thank you, Red Pill, but listen to us first and then you can go listen to them. CJ, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're excited because he's going to stick around for Unleashed.
That's right. Alabama Unfiltered Unleashed is something that we do to thank people who have joined the fight, as you should be doing. Join the fight, get the merch, get the content, support the cause, get the goods, and we'll be there. You can access it on the membership portal on the website. Go to your membership and sign in. If you haven't done it yet, the top of the screen, there's a red button on the website that says Become a Member. Click there, sign up. Groups start at $5 a month, $10 a month, $18.19 a month, or more. So do that so that you can access this amazing content that we have. What is he going to be talking about?
Okay, in the Unleashed segment, it's going to be the presidential election and log cabin Republicans. Stick around.